If you wanted to build something massive back then, you had to pay with your sweat. You had to envision something to make excavating plans. We spent countless hours just fighting the earth. And then the rules changed. Something was introduced to us. Something beyond great. Something we could not even anticipate. The rules were simple. 1 block of grass, 2 blocks of dirt, and 1 block of bedrock. Suddenly, you weren't an explorer anymore. You were an architect. This marked a pivoting point in the history of millions of creative minds. Who once was limited by the pressure of having to wipe out entire mountains now had limitless options thanks to this ultimate blank canvas. Well, a canvas covered in slimes. Nevertheless, we didn't have to shape the world anymore. We just built it. It birthed a whole new era of creators, artists, engineers alike. But if you were on console, you were always watching from the sidelines. No update came at the same time as our Java counterparts. Delays of a couple weeks between versions felt like years. Imagine watching as your neighbor gets all those new fancy toys to play with, but you can't try them. The wait was the most difficult part, but it always paid off in the end. The 360 edition was magic. Couch co-op, staying up late on school nights, world limits that still felt endless, a nether so small it felt like an arena. It left a legacy, pun intended. A legacy of unshatterable memories. But we craved updates. We craved that endless green.
When the TU5 finally dropped in October 2012,
it was an event. And when I say that our patience always paid off, what I really mean is that this was the most anticipated release of our lives. And it finally became a reality. We were just kids with an infinite playground, and we had no idea how influential this was going to be. Without the burden of landscaping, our mindset fundamentally shifted. We weren't just surviving the night or carving cliffsides anymore. We were designing plans of the utmost importance. Superflat became our ultimate drafting table. We conceptualized architecture in ways we never thought possible, turning basic geometric shapes into sprawling, breathtaking realities. Before, a house was just a shelter to hide from creepers and skeletons. Now, a house was a statement. We started thinking about floor plans, aesthetics, the contrast between sandstone and spruce planks and stone bricks. We weren't constrained by the shape of a mountain or the depth of a valley. We were masters of our domain, learning scale and proportion simply because we finally had the room to breathe. And then the artists found their voice, to look down at the world and see not just blocks, but a literal grid. Millions of us grabbed stacks of dyed wool and started painting. We brought icons to life. It was a silent, global renaissance, proving that creativity doesn't need boundaries, just a place to start. It started with simple 8-bit sprites. I remember when Nintendo-themed skins were rumored to, at some point, be part of the marketplace, but because of some copyright issues, were never actually added. Well, don't bother, because we got a Mario here, Link there, and a Mega Man over here anyways. And soon, people were recreating the Mona Lisa, shading with different types of stone and clay. We were translating our favorite memories from other games and pop culture into this unified blocky language. It taught a whole generation about color theory and perspective, one square at a time. For the analytically minded, this flat terrain wasn't just a canvas either. It was the world's largest circuit board. Without mountains to interrupt the wiring, redstone engineering exploded. We went from simple piston doors to building functional calculators and logic gates. We were learning the fundamentals of computer science simply because now the space finally allowed us to. There was no more digging out massive underground caverns just to hide a wire. You could lay everything out in the open, tracing the glowing red lines like veins of logic. We built automated farms, sorting systems, playable minigames, and massive displays.
It was a visual playground of complex mathematical concepts turned into something we could literally walk through.
When you step back and look at the sheer scale of it, it puts a smile on your face. A simple, empty void birthed something genuinely great for humanity. It sparked a creative fire in a generation exactly when and where it needed to spark. We learned to problem solve. We learned that from nothing, we could build absolutely everything. You would join a server, and where once there was only grass, now stood a metropolis. Friends who had never studied urban planning were zoning districts, building railway systems, and designing economies. It gave us a sense of agency that the real world couldn't offer yet. We were shaping our own societies, learning the value of collaboration and shared vision. Every single block placed was a testament to our collective imagination. We took an empty world and filled it with our minds. Superflat didn't just change how we played a game, it changed how we approached the empty spaces in our lives. It meant that given a flat surface and the right tools, there was no limit to what we could conceive. We just needed that infinite horizon to show us our own potential. All of this led me to think about some serious questions. Questions I want to ask you. Maybe we could enlighten each other on the matter, as I don't think I have the answers for them all. Did the infinite flat world teach us to fear the void or to embrace it? When confronted with absolute terrifying freedom and zero instructions, what does it say about us that our first instinct was simply to create? Perhaps when faced with an empty horizon, we realize that the void isn't empty at all. It's just waiting for us to speak first. The absence of terrain wasn't a lack of a world. It was an open invitation to project the landscape of our minds outward. Why is it that when we were given a world without boundaries, we immediately started building walls, roads, and rules again? Did we crave the very restrictions we thought we were escaping? Maybe total freedom is just another kind of wilderness. We laid down roads not because we needed them to travel, but because we needed them to ground us. We built walls to define a space that was entirely ours. separating somewhere from everywhere. In the end, we might not have been escaping the rules. We were just desperately trying to write our own. How much of our adolescent psyche was shaped by these green planes? Did learning to organize blocks into complex, logical structures wire our brains to seek order in the chaos of our lives? It's entirely possible that every block we placed was a quiet rehearsal for adulthood. We were categorizing, sorting, and defining our environment, 1 cubic meter at a time. In a messy real world, here the rules were absolute. Perhaps we weren't just building structures, we were building the mental frameworks we would rely on when the things outside the game stopped making sense. As 30-year-olds now, why is it so hard to look at an empty space and just play? Did we lose that raw, uninhibited creativity as we grew up? Or did it just change shape, hiding behind our daily responsibilities? Maybe the creativity never left us, it just got heavier. Placing a block had no consequences before. Now, every decision feels weighted down by time and expectation. Why is that? It's not that we can't play anymore. It's that play requires a vulnerability we've learned to protect. Maybe the child who built fortunes without blueprints is still there, just waiting for permission to stop planning and start doing. When we turn off the console, where do these worlds exist? They say a place only exists as long as someone remembers it. But perhaps the architecture of our past remains within us, gently supporting the people we've become. We may never walk those digital streets again, but the confidence we forged there, the knowledge that we can take absolutely nothing and turn it into everything, all of that doesn't need a save file. It simply became who we are. As time went by, we filled out forms to redirect our mail to new addresses, packing our tangible lives into cardboard boxes. But what about the intangible? What happens to a digital metropolis when the hard drive it lives on gets tucked away in a dusty attic or thrown out during a frantic move? Sometimes we left those worlds behind because we mistakenly believed we could always build another one, not realizing that the specific magic of that time and place is inextricably bound to the plastic and silicon we just discarded. We were so focused on forwarding our physical lives to the next chapter, we simply forgot to bring our childhoods with us. It is a profoundly strange modern tragedy to think that millions of our greatest architectural triumphs are currently sitting at the bottom of a landfill. Does a world cease to exist when the power is finally cut and the circuits decay under layers of earth? Or is there a strange poetic beauty in knowing that our adolescent masterpieces are returning to the literal ground, sleeping silently in the dark? We built monuments to our own boundless creativity, only for them to become fossils, buried alongside the debris of the decades we left behind. So, what did it all mean? If the servers are offline, the community is scattered, and the consoles destroyed, did those endless green plains actually matter? If a masterpiece is locked in a broken hard drive, was it still a masterpiece? Maybe their true purpose was never to last forever. They were a temporary scaffolding for our minds. The cities we built on those drives may be lost to time and trash heaps, but the people we became while building them are still here. The superflat era didn't leave a physical footprint on the world. It left its blueprint on us. And that is something no landfill can ever swallow.